On my first day of medical school, I had a class called The Cell. According to the schedule, that class was meant to be an introductory one. We would supposedly review what a cell is, what are the main characteristics, the main differences between eukaryotes and prokaryotes, that stuff you typically learn in school, or at least that's what I thought it was going to be. But what actually happened that day was that I arrived, late of course, because I lost myself looking for the classroom. I sat down and I started to pay attention. And in just 30 minutes, my face went from total enthusiasm to panic. In those 30 minutes, the teacher did not only start talking about a bunch of stuff I've never heard, like sedimentation coefficients and operons, but what was worse was that everyone seemed to knew what she was talking about. She asked, they all answered. She started a phrase, they all finished it. And because everyone seemed to knew what she was talking about, she didn't even bother to explain, which made me even more confused and more panicked. But you see, my shock wasn't because I wasn't understanding. My shock was because my identity was being cast into a doubt. You see, I spent 11 years of my life in school building this identity of the smart one, the one who knew, the one who got the good grades and participated in class. That was me. And in 30 minutes, gone. Identity destroyed. I call this phenomenon the medical student paradox, and it is the mathematical consequence of taking 100 top students from 100 different schools or colleges and putting them all in the same class. By mere mathematics, most of the students that used to be at the top are now just average. And although you could argue that intelligence is not relative and you are not less intelligent because other people are smarter, it certainly doesn't feel that way when it happens to you. Additionally, it's no surprise to anyone that in a competitive field such as medicine, the best opportunities are always given to the ones that stand out. After all, no one puts in their CV, I had totally average grades. Therefore, you need to hire me. Furthermore, there is some evidence that says that your feelings and actions are heavily influenced by your perceived position in the group you're part of. In fact, author and psychologist Jordan Peterson dedicated the first chapter of his bestseller book 12 Rules for Life to explain how the position we perceive to have in our group directly affects our levels of serotonin, which in turn modulates our perceptions, values, emotions, thoughts, and actions. So make no mistake, this is a real issue. But then, how do we fix it? Well, the advice I typically see to address this issue usually falls in one of two categories. First, there is the group that tells you to level up. You know what you need to do? You need to stop being a little baby. If everyone's studying 2 hours a day, guess what? You're gonna study 4. If everyone's reading a chapter a day, guess what? You're gonna read 2. If everyone's pulling all-nighters studying for their exams, guess what? You're going to start sleeping in the library. That's it. In fact, you know what? Pack your bags right now. I'm gonna drive you. Then there is the group that tells you no. Take it easy. Okay, so you're telling me you want to sacrifice everything to be the best medical student? Come on, that's as stupid as sacrificing everything to be the best taxi driver. It's a job. The meaning of life is not found inside of your job, it's found outside of your job. You know what you should do? You should do as little as possible to get paid. That's the strategy I would do. As minimal as possible. Minimum to get paid. I was part of both groups at some point in my career, but I found none of these solutions to actually fix the problem. And that's when I started to realize that the solution is neither to kill yourself trying to get to the top, nor to stop caring about the hierarchy altogether. The solution, at least for me, was realizing that there's more than one game to be played. So let me explain. Okay, so when we enter medical school, we tend to focus on this graph right here. For those who don't know, this represents the normal distribution of a population. Here you have the best ones, here you have the worst ones, and here, all of here, you have the average ones. So the whole problem of the medical student paradox was that we started here in our school, but now we are here in medical school. And of course, that makes us sad. And the solution we were given told us to either struggle to get back up here or to stop giving a damn altogether and fall because why the hell not? Well, my solution is realizing that there is more than one graph, more than one hierarchy, and that in fact there are thousands of these. So instead of obsessing yourself with this particular one, find a different one that interests you, where you are naturally good at, and focus on that one. And that's precisely what I did. In my second year of medical school, I entered a program in my university called Tutores Pares, where I basically teach medicine to younger medical students. And I loved it. I realized that teaching was one of those things that not only was really fun, but that also came very naturally to me. Finding this thing was like having a completely different graph where to focus my efforts. And in this graph, I was naturally at the top. So that's where I focused my efforts for the rest of medical school. I tried to become the best tutor par I could. Obviously, I kept studying for my classes, trying to get better and all of that, and I eventually did get better. But with this new passion of mine, I managed to fix all the problems of the medical student paradox. First of all, my identity stopped being in conflict because I didn't see myself anymore as the smart one, and instead I started to see myself as the one who maybe doesn't know everything, but is really good at teaching what he knows. I knew I wasn't the smartest one, but I was okay with it because I had something else that made me feel accomplished and proud. Additionally, I started to find ways to stand out using my passion to teach. I piled up as many teaching diplomas as I could. I also founded an interest group where I could teach to those who wanted to learn internal medicine, which happens to be my favorite specialty. And I also eventually got nominated and received the Best Medical Tutor Par award in my university, which was like the first huge milestone in my CV. And that, of course, opened the door to other opportunities like participating in the contest for the best medical intern in Colombia and representing my university in the international contest of medical knowledge and all that fun stuff. But everything, like the important point was that everything started with this, with the game of teaching, not the game of intelligence. And throughout the years, I've interviewed and talked to hundreds of doctors. Many of these interviews are now published in my Spanish YouTube channel. And one of the things I've realized doing these interviews is that all of the successful doctors eventually find their thing, their game, their craft. And that's what makes them successful. Of course, there are also the typical high achievers that graduate first in their class and all of that, but most of them are not like that. Some of them, for instance, were pretty average at everything in med school until they found that subspecialty that ignited a fire and then became obsessed at learning that subspecialty in particular. Others realized that their thing was found in doing research and publishing like crazy. Others in the cross-section between politics and medicine, others in the communication with patients, others in running a business for a hospital and becoming millionaires. And then there's others like Dr. Mike, who of course I didn't interview, but who is at the top of his graph, not because of his great scores in a standardized test or anything like that, but because he's very charismatic, well-spoken, and loves to share his insights in social media. All these people found success and self-worth and confidence not by staying in the graph, arguing over where to go, but by finding a different graph to go to, a different game. A game at which they were naturally good at, and then they just started to improve on it. This idea is best put by James Clear in his bestseller book Atomic Habits, where he says, "Learning to play a game where the odds are in your favor is critical for maintaining motivation and feeling successful. In theory, you can enjoy almost anything. In practice, you are more likely to enjoy the things that come easily to you." So yeah, by all means, try to get better at getting better grades, try to have better learning techniques, and I'm gonna give you a recommendation on that in just a few seconds. But maybe consider that the real solution is just to find a different game. And if you haven't found it yet, if you haven't found your passion, just do what Steve Jobs said years ago and keep looking. Don't settle. Now, one place where you can start looking and maybe find some inspiration is Skillshare. In particular, I would suggest you watch a class by Michelle B called Designing the Life You Want, 4 exercises for clarity and motivation. In this class, Michelle walks you through 4 simple exercises that try to make you answer the question, which life do I want to live? By doing this, you will hopefully not only realize what kind of life you want to have, but also what kind of things bring you joy, what kind of things you're naturally good at. And with some luck, this could be the start to finding that game and that hierarchy that you could be passionate about. Just like Michelle's class, Skillshare is packed with amazing classes on a wide variety of topics. You can learn about productivity, finances, animation, philosophy, like you name it. I, for instance, published a class on the science of effective learning, which teaches you evidence-based learning techniques to help you study more effectively. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff you can learn in Skillshare, and the best thing is that you can start learning all of this for free. All you need to do is be one of the first 1,000 subscribers that uses the link in the description. With that link, you'll get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, and in that month, you can watch whatever you want in the platform for free. Once the month is up, you can make an informed decision of whether you want to keep learning or not. But in the meantime, you can use this opportunity and give it a try, because who knows, you might learn something useful in the process. But anyways, that's everything for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks also to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you in the next one.